Are you brave enough to face the unknown, a presence that you can't explain, a feeling of being watched? These are the stories of those who have, stories of encounters with the unexplainable, the unsettling, the terrifying. Each story you're about to hear is a journey into the heart of fear, told from the perspective of those who lived it. These aren't fictional tales spun for entertainment, these are real experiences that have left their mark on the people who faced them. So, prepare yourself to step into a world where shadows whisper, where objects hold a darkness beyond comprehension, and where the line between reality and nightmare blurs. These are the terrifying true tales of the cursed doll.
My name is Jacob, and I've always been drawn to the forgotten. As a kid, I loved exploring abandoned places, digging through dusty attics and scouring flea markets for hidden treasures. Little did I know my fascination would lead me to something sinister. It was a sweltering summer day when I stumbled upon the old antique shop tucked away on a forgotten side street. The air hung heavy with the smell of mildew and dust as I stepped inside. The shop was a labyrinth of forgotten relics, each with its own story to tell. I wandered through the aisles, my fingers trailing over faded velvet, chipped porcelain and tarnished silver. Then I saw her. She was nestled among a jumble of porcelain dolls, her eyes seemingly following me as I moved. Unlike the other dolls, her porcelain skin was flawless, untouched by time. Her once vibrant red dress was faded, but its elegance was undeniable. Her beauty was haunting, captivating. I cautiously picked her up, her delicate porcelain weight surprising in its stillness. As I brushed a cobweb from her cheek, I felt a strange energy, a tingling sensation that sent shivers racing up my arm. "She's special, that one," a raspy voice startled me. I turned to see the shopkeeper, a stooped old woman with eyes that seemed to hold ancient secrets. Her gaze was intense, unwavering. "Be careful with her, young man," she warned, her voice barely a whisper. "She's not to be trifled with." I dismissed her words as the ramblings of an old woman, but I couldn't shake the unease that settled over me. I paid for the doll, her unsettling presence a weight in my backpack as I left the shop. That night I placed her on a shelf in my study, her porcelain face eerily illuminated by the moonlight streaming through the window. As I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the sensation of eyes boring into me. Then the nightmares began. Each night I was plagued by vivid, horrifying dreams. I would wake in a cold sweat, the feeling of unseen hands around my throat, the echo of whispers chilling me to my core.
I've always been a bit of a skeptic when it comes to the paranormal. That is, until I encountered a particular antique doll that turned my skepticism into pure terror. It started innocently enough. My grandmother, a passionate collector of antique dolls, passed away, leaving me her prized possession. A beautiful handcrafted porcelain doll from the Victorian era. The doll was exquisite, with rosy cheeks, delicate features, and piercing blue eyes that seemed to follow your every move. Despite its beauty, there was something about the doll that unsettled me. Maybe it was the uncanny valley effect, or perhaps it was the stories my grandmother used to tell about the doll being touched by something. Whatever it was, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease whenever I was near it. Initially, I relegated the doll to a display cabinet in my living room, admiring it from a distance. But as the weeks passed, I found myself strangely drawn to it. I'd catch myself staring at it, mesmerized by its lifelike qualities. I even started talking to it, confiding in it like it was a living, breathing person. Then, things started to get strange. At night, I'd hear soft footsteps creaking down the hallway even though I lived alone. Doors would creak open and slam shut, seemingly on their own. Objects would go missing and then reappear in the strangest places. I initially dismissed these occurrences as my imagination playing tricks on me, the result of stress and lack of sleep. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, something connected to the doll. One night, I woke up in a cold sweat, the feeling of being watched washing over me.
They say curiosity killed the cat. In my case, it was a cursed doll that nearly drove me to the brink of insanity. This is my story. I'd always been fascinated by the occult, by the stories of cursed objects and haunted artifacts. I devoured books on the paranormal, watched countless documentaries, even dabbled in amateur ghost hunting. I craved the thrill of the unknown, the adrenaline rush of encountering something beyond the mundane. So, when I heard rumors of a local flea market vendor selling a cursed doll, I knew I had to see it for myself. The flea market was a sensory overload, a cacophony of sights, sounds, and smells. I weaved through throngs of people, following the whispers and hushed conversations that led me to a dimly lit stall tucked away in a far corner. The stall was crammed with an eclectic assortment of oddities, animal skulls, antique medical instruments, dusty books on forgotten lore. And there, in the center of it all, sat the doll. It was a porcelain doll, dressed in a tattered white gown, its once vibrant blonde hair now brittle and matted. Its eyes, once a bright blue, were now vacant and milky white, staring blankly ahead. But it was the doll's expression that chilled me to the core. It was a look of pure malice, of unadulterated hatred frozen onto its porcelain face. It was as if the doll itself was aware of my presence, and it despised me for it. "Can I help you with something, son?" The vendor, a gruff-looking man with a salt and pepper beard and piercing blue eyes, asked. The doll, I managed to stammer, my gaze fixated on the cursed object. "What can you tell me about it?" The vendor chuckled, a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the stall. "That's Emily," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "She's a handful, that one." He went on to tell me a tale of a young girl named Emily, who had died tragically in a house fire, her beloved doll clutched tightly in her arms. The doll, he said, was now possessed by Emily's vengeful spirit, seeking retribution for her untimely demise. I listened intently, torn between skepticism and a growing sense of unease. Part of me wanted to dismiss the vendor's story as nothing more than a clever sales pitch. But another part of me, the part that craved the thrill of the unknown, was utterly captivated. "How much?" I asked, already knowing the answer would seal my fate. The vendor named his price, and without hesitation, I paid it. As I handed over the money, I could have sworn I saw a flicker of malice in the doll's vacant eyes, as if it knew that I had just made a grave mistake. I took Emily home, placing her on a shelf in my study, her presence casting a palpable chill over the room. I tried to rationalize my purchase, telling myself it was just an old doll, a harmless antique. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had invited something sinister into my home. That night, the nightmares began. I dreamt of being trapped in a burning house, the air thick with smoke and the smell of charred flesh. I could hear Emily's voice, a high-pitched wail, calling out to me from the flames. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, the smell of smoke lingering in my nostrils. As the days turned into nights, the nightmares intensified, becoming more vivid, more terrifying. But it wasn't just the nightmares that tormented me. It was the feeling of being watched, the sensation of unseen eyes following my every move. I began to hear whispers, faint and eerie, echoing through the halls of my home. Objects would move on their own, shifting positions when I wasn't looking. The lights would flicker ominously, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. My paranoia grew, feeding off the strange occurrences that seemed to multiply with each passing day. Desperate for answers, I delved deeper into my research on haunted dolls, hoping to find a way to break the curse. I read about ancient rituals and exorcisms, about ways to cleanse objects of malevolent spirits. I even reached out to paranormal experts, seeking their guidance and expertise. One expert warned me that the spirit attached to Emily was particularly vengeful, and that removing it would not be easy. My desperation grew, mirroring the intensity of the nightmares and the escalating disturbances in my home. It all came to a head one night, a final confrontation that would determine my fate. Emily's doll sat on the shelf, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. I began to chant an ancient incantation, one I had found in a dusty old tome, hoping it would be enough to banish the spirit. The room shook violently, the air thick with a palpable sense of malevolence. Emily's voice screamed, a sound that seemed to pierce my very soul. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The room fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The doll lay lifeless on the shelf, its eyes now dull and empty. Relief washed over me, a sense of peace I hadn't felt in weeks. I had learned my lesson, a hard and painful one, about the dangers of meddling with the unknown. I moved on, but the experience left a mark, a reminder of the curse that had followed me home. And though Emily's doll no longer haunted my nights, the memory of her malevolent gaze would stay with me forever.
So there you have it, 3 chilling tales of encounters with the cursed doll. These stories serve as a chilling reminder that some objects hold a darkness we may never fully comprehend. If you enjoyed these spine-tingling encounters, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more terrifying true tales. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a story. But be warned, the world of the paranormal is vast and unpredictable. You never know when you might stumble upon something that sends chills down your spine. And if you have your own encounter with the unexplained, share it in the comments below. Your story could be featured in a future video. Until next time, sleep tight. If you can,